May I welcome Dr. Chatterjee? He's been my colleague. He's here now. Welcome, Dr. Chatterjee. A little bit about him.
Warm
He's a
welcome
graduate.
from us all. Go ahead.
Can you hear us, Chatterjee? Say something so we know. You unmute yourself. Okay. Can you hear us clearly?
I can.
Okay. Well, Dr. Chatterjee is a medical graduate of University College of Medical Sciences, Delhi, UCMS Delhi, and a postgraduate from Maulana Azad Medical College. He's been with Apollo and my colleague for over 20 years. He's one of the best physicians. I've worked in 4 countries. He's one of the best physicians I've come across, and he sees most of my patients pre-op, post-op, and I have full faith in him. So he's an internal medicine physician, and more importantly, relevant to today, he's a COVID physician. So many of you would have seen him. He's a personality, a TV personality. He's spoken a lot about COVID. He's actually put himself out there. He's had infection. He'll talk about it. He had the COVID infection. His family, I think, got it from him. His family had infection. And then he then went back to serve on the COVID ward and the COVID ICU, and he's been doing all that. So, and as I said, he's one of the most hardworking, extremely nice colleague of mine. So, can we start now? You heard all that about yourself?
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Dr. Prasad, for such kind words. And it's really a privilege for me to come and speak in front of this August gathering that you have. But yes, it's a very relevant topic. It is a burning hot topic these days. Most of the people are obviously expecting a vaccine shot to be given. And there are lots and lots of queries that have been answering to different people, including media and all these, that people have really different types of questions. A few answers, actually, I also don't know. We are also going through it because it's a vaccine which was launched within a year. It obviously has been found to be efficacious and safe till this time. We need to obviously keep a close watch on that. But obviously, we will go ahead with the talk as you ask me further questions.
Okay. So I thought I had got most of the questions. I've been thinking about this for a week. And as soon as we logged in at 7 o'clock, there were a few people who had a few more questions that I hadn't thought of. And then I shared the questions with you and you said, yeah, you had a few questions that I hadn't thought of. So let me go through the format that I have and the few questions that fellow Rotarians have asked, but I would want them freely at the end to ask questions that we haven't asked or they haven't got the full answer. Okay. So to start with, the first question. Why do we need this vaccine? The number of cases in Delhi are down to less than 200 a day. Should Delhiwalas now be thinking about, should we be talking about a vaccine at all? And if you say yes, we should, then tell us why. And tell us then what is a vaccine? For people, maybe Rotarian, one or two may not know, or some of us may think they know. Why are vaccines necessary and how would they work in this case? So number one, do we need a vaccine at this time? And number two, what is a vaccine?
We definitely need the vaccine. The numbers might be low right now, but you have seen UK, how is it going and what is it going through? The numbers in most of these European countries was much less. When India was really having high numbers, the European countries were having much lesser numbers. But you see the European countries now, and especially UK is really going through bad times. So we cannot relax. We cannot really have our guards down. We need to take the vaccine, because if we take the vaccine now in this period, maybe we'll be able to build up a herd immunity in the next couple of months, and that will reduce the surge of infections. Most of the countries are having the third surge, the second surge, and we have been almost following the Western countries. We have been almost following them by 2 to 3 months. So maybe this is a time which we have got to prepare ourselves better, to get ourselves vaccinated. Then we will at least save ourselves from the type of difficulties that UK is going through.
You said herd immunity, but a recent report said that that we may have already reached that herd immunity, and that is why the number of cases are down. Do you think we have reached herd immunity level?
I still don't think so. Maybe Delhi has had, the Sero survey said that 50 to 60% have already developed the antibodies in Delhi, but I still doubt I still doubt this interpretation that is happening, because the numbers have gone down. It has happened all over the world like this, that the numbers have gone down and then again there's a surge. So I'm really keeping my fingers crossed, and I think that we should continue with all the protective gears that we have and should get the vaccination as early as possible.
I will talk about the other types of vaccines, but of the two, people were asking, does it alter DNA? Of the two vaccines, and that's why my first question, what are vaccines? So are they a dead virus? Are they mRNA? What are of the two available? Can you tell us what are these?
See, let me just begin with what is a vaccine. A vaccine is basically a biological preparation that provides active acquired immunity to a particular infectious disease. So it's basically a biological preparation that is injected into people. Now, this could be natural or this could be synthesized. The ones which are synthesized are actually the mRNA ones, which are the latest ones which are being used these days, especially which have been manufactured in the US. They have never been tried in the humans first, but they have enough studies to prove its efficacy and safety till now. So they are the vaccines which are produced outside and called the mRNA vaccines. There are also DNA vaccines which are being produced, which has still not hit the market. But the Indian ones.
So the Covishield is an mRNA vaccine.
No. The Covishield is basically a virus-borne vaccine. It has got a virus as a vector. It's called vector-borne viruses. This Covishield, which is basically prepared by AstraZeneca in collaboration with our Serum Institute, it has got a virus in it, which is called an adenovirus, which is not the same as the COVID virus. So it has got an adenovirus. Over and above that, it has got a few antigenic material, which is so this virus vector is carrying this antigenic material, which when injected into the human body produces an immune response which protects the people from getting infected with COVID again.
Okay. So who are the people at risk? Is there any age limit that, like in Norway, the recent study that they stopped giving vaccines to above 80-year-olds because they had 23 deaths after the Pfizer vaccine. So in Delhi, to this audience, would you say, is there an age limit at which, because many of us are seniors, including myself, so would you say there is an age limit? And also because in Germany, I heard today that they've banned this Oxford vaccine, or they stopped recommending it for those above 65 because it did not provide protection. So what would you say is an age limit beyond which you'd say it's not required, it's not necessary? And would you say, do we have enough evidence, like in Germany, you may not be aware, that they've said don't give this vaccine to above 65?
No, because what they found is that the efficacy is very less. That's what they are claiming. But let more studies come through. I think the platform with which the Covaxin, the Indian-made vaccine totally, and the Oxford vaccines have been made, they are good time-tested platforms. And I would go by their safety much more than I would vouch for their safety much more than the other vaccines, because these are old vaccines by the older platforms. We have used this in this country for the last so many years, and it has been found to be safe till now. So I would vouch by the Indian vaccines. Only thing is what was done is that it was introduced a bit early, I thought. If it would have been introduced maybe 2 weeks down the line, the response amongst Indian people would have been much better. But I have no doubts on the safety and the efficacy of these two vaccines. Efficacy will obviously not be like the mRNA vaccines, which they are saying there is about 95%. I think the efficacy would hover around 60 to 70% in these Indian-made vaccines. But the safety factor, I think they have a huge safety factor with that.
Okay, but that doesn't answer it's a balance between efficacy and risk. So if it's not going to be in above 65-year-old, it's only going to be 10% efficacy, why should I bother taking that risk? I have taken it already, by the way, but I'm just asking that question.
No, I would still recommend that we should take the vaccine. Everybody should take the vaccine, whatever be the recommendation. Where it has not been tested is people below 18 or 16 years of age, where it has not been tested. But anything above, anybody above 18 years of age and without real contraindications should get themselves vaccinated. There's no doubt about it, whatever be the age.
So I'll come to contraindications. So will this cover the variants? Because now we have a African variant, a UK variant. I mean, are we going to get ourselves different vaccines every year or every few months?
See, that has been happening with the flu vaccines for years together, that every year the manufacturers had to tweak the vaccine a bit to cater to the different variants or the different mutated viruses that were there in the scenario. So it would happen with this virus also, in all probability, that we might need a different vaccine every year, or whatever the duration of effective immunity is. So that only time would tell us as to whether we would need more vaccines, whether we need it every 6 months or every 1 year. That only time is going to tell us.
Okay.
But yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned flu, but while you're talking about flu, so now at this time, I have called you multiple times. When should we take a flu? Those who take flu vaccine at this time of the year or later, how do we time it? I mean, if I need flu vaccine, pneumonia vaccine, this vaccine, how do our fellow Rotarians, how do they go about it? Which do we do first, and how do we go about, and what is the time interval between each of these? So we've established that this vaccine we need to give. You've made a case for that.
Yeah.
But I need the other two as well. How do I figure out?
See, normally the flu vaccines were earlier given after the month of September, October, because all the manufacturers would include the newer variants or the newer mutated strains into their assembly point. But nowadays, this is going on every month. They are actually going on adding or changing the things that have mutated, the viruses that have mutated. So nowadays they say that the vaccines can be given anytime, but the preferred month obviously has been for all these years around September, October, just before the flu season comes in, and we have got the latest antiviral vaccines available with us. But nowadays you can take it anytime, but yes, obviously the preferred time still is the month of August, September. That's the month.
And for the pneumonia?
Pneumonia, you can take it. Pneumonia, you can take it anytime, but there are different. Yeah.
Is there any interval between? So if I need all three of them, is there any interval, or would you just give a week or two and then?
See, what is being told is with the COVID vaccine, they are saying that at least a 2-week gap between the other vaccines, at least a 2-week gap between the other vaccines.
Okay. So now the very important question, which most people have on their minds, is comorbidities. Can it be? So we're talking about blood pressure, diabetes, hypertension, ischemic heart disease, and blood thinners. And as somebody asked me recently, if they have three, does 1 + 1 + 1 add up to more? So if you have multiple comorbidities, does that make it worse? And then somebody else asked me, ulcerative colitis, another autoimmune disease, how does that figure in the equation? So comorbidities, multiple comorbidities, autoimmune diseases, blood thinners. Can you cover all of that?
See, as the number of comorbidities increase, you obviously are at a higher risk. Comorbidities includes all these things that you named. It includes diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, stroke, even colitis for that matter. They all are comorbidities. So people who have more comorbidities are actually susceptible to have the infection more frequently, and also they are susceptible to a more severe infection. That is why when the vaccination drive came through, it was decided that after the frontline and the healthcare workers, it would be this group of people, even below 50, if they have comorbidities, are being preferred over the people of 70 years if they don't have comorbidities. So people with comorbidities have to be vaccinated earlier than anyone else.
Okay. So now I was telling them that you've had the infection, you have some antibodies. A, do you need the vaccine? And B, how long after the infection should you get vaccine? And number 3, is immunity developed by getting the disease different from those getting the vaccine and the antibody? Are they the same thing? Do you understand my question?
Yeah.
That you have antibodies because of the infection. I have antibodies I will develop because of the vaccine. Are they different? And should you also get vaccinated?
See, people who are suffering with active COVID, like suppose I'm having COVID right now, I cannot get myself vaccinated. They say at least 2 to 4 weeks have to pass by once you have recovered from COVID. So any person who is suffering with active COVID right now cannot get vaccinated, but after 4 weeks of recovery, they're equal candidates for getting themselves vaccinated. That's number 1. Number 2, why should people who have had COVID also get vaccinated? One is that it's a very new disease. People still don't know. And what most of the people are seeing is that within 3 to 6 months, the immunity is actually waning off. So what does this vaccine do? It actually causes a robust immunity. It causes a robust immunity production by your body. So even if you have had COVID, you should get yourself vaccinated just to have a robust immunity. Also, people claim that because this vaccine is an artificial thing quite a few times, even the variants, what they are doing is that if I'm infected by a particular strain of virus, then I am maybe immune to one particular strain of virus. But with these vaccines, which are quite a few times artificially manufactured, they take these antigens and all these things from the newer variants also. So as time evolves, as the newer mutants and the newer variants come, maybe with a vaccine, you are much more protected against these newer variants than the only variant with which you got infected. So everybody and anybody should get infected till the time we have more knowledge about this disease. We actually are still at crossroads. It is 1 year, but still we are learning every other day as to how the disease is evolving.
Okay. So are the antibodies that we develop, are they any different or is it the same? Your antibody will be just to that infection that you had, whereas the variants will give you that extra. The vaccine may protect you against the other.
And a much more robust immunity can be produced by the vaccine.
By the way, have you had yourself vaccinated?
I haven't had, because I'm waiting for the next week. I got my antibodies tested, which is very surprising because I got COVID in the month of May, and now it's 8 months. My antibodies are still existing, and the levels haven't really changed much.
Oh,
so I'm conducting a study on myself.
Okay, great. Do you think we'll need a booster? That is a question that most people ask. Abhi le rahe hain, fir booster. I mean, the second shot will be in a month, but as you said, in 6 months, the antibody titers are going to go down. Will we need a booster? What is the evidence right now?
Right now, we don't have any evidence, but they say that yes, by the type of preparation that they are making, like Johnson & Johnson is coming out with a vaccine, which is only 1 shot. But whereas our vaccines and the Pfizer one, the Moderna, our vaccines, they all have been shown to have that when you take 2 doses, almost at a gap of 3 to 4 weeks, the immune response is much better than a single shot vaccine. So obviously you need 2 shots of vaccine at an average difference of 4 weeks apart.
Okay, so you have helped me prophylaxis the last 10 months, and thank God I'm protected so far. So if the fellow Rotarians were to get a vaccine next month or the month after that, and it will take time for antibodies to build, do you believe in prophylaxis like ivermectin you were giving me and others? What would you say to the others as a method of prophylaxis before they develop antibodies?
No, still no proven studies. You can only because ivermectin is a very safe medication. We are taking it especially to healthcare people who were healthcare workers, because their exposure risk was much higher than a general population. So I would not recommend for general population. But what is very important is to continue with all the measures that we have been talking about for the last 1 year. Mask is important. Social distancing is important. People have started visiting everybody and anybody that have started having parties and all that. That still cannot continue for the next 6 to 8 months at least. If we take all those precautions, then we can control this and we might protect ourselves from getting infected till the time the vaccine starts working. So we cannot put our guards down. They have to be all like what we have been following for the last 1 year at least.
Okay. And these deaths that have occurred all over the country, sporadic, my concern is, like, I got myself vaccinated at Apollo Hospital. I know if there was a reaction, it would have been taken care of. I worry about the primary health centers and other places where they may not have a crash cart to resuscitate. What would you say to Rotarians that if they get their vaccine, should it be in their nearby clinic or should it be in a hospital where, that if they were to go into a shock, somebody would take care of them? What would you recommend?
See, the incidence of side effects or complications which have been found is really minimal. It hasn't really troubled any one of us till now. Time would tell us further, but till now, no major complications have really happened. But I would still say that if somebody is an elderly person with a lot of comorbidities, a hospital setting is always a better place to go and get yourself vaccinated because you have all the facilities available over there. But till now, I would not say that this is a general recommendation for everybody, but people who are elderly with lots of comorbidities, a hospital setting is maybe better than a clinic setting.
No, that's clear. So now at Apollo, we've been vaccinating for the last 10 days. 100 each. There have been about 1,000 vaccinations plus. Have you seen within our own hospital in 1,000 people because if there was a problem, they would have come to you. Have you seen too many side effects? Look, a mild fever and aches and those things are common, but anything more than that?
That is all what we have seen. Aches and pains, a bit of fever, a bit of letharginess, they're feeling a bit tired, they're having a bit of headache. So these small, minor symptoms that people are having, which is true with most of the antiviral vaccines, is happening. We at least till date haven't seen any major side effect till now. Even people who have a history of a lot of allergies and all that have taken the vaccine, and they haven't really manifested with an allergy, most of them.
So that was one of the questions. When you say allergies, do you mean people with skin rashes, or do you mean people with asthma, or do you mean other kind of food allergies? What just define allergies?
No, this includes even people who are allergic to different medications, like people who take different medications, because this is obviously a medical product. So people who have had allergies to different medications, obviously people who are prone to allergies, like what you said, an asthma or a sneezing, an allergic rhinitis, or they have had an allergy to the contrast when they got while they were getting themselves imaged with a CT scan or an MRI. So these are obviously candidates who have to be slightly careful, because they have been always saying that allergic manifestations can happen with this vaccine, but the incidence reported till now is really, really low.
No, but what would you say to fellow Rotarians? Like drug allergies, they know. But what about food? Somebody says, I'm allergic to milk or fish. Or
no, it's not a contraindication at all.
Okay. And skin rashes, psoriasis, eczema?
And anything and everything, all unless and until you have developed an anaphylactic reaction to the COVID vaccine or any of its components ever taken earlier, till that time is not a contraindication.
One of the Rotarians was asking us, do you guys know about the long-term effects of these vaccines? What would you say to reassure us that we are not sure how?
So that is where the question is, that because the vaccine was launched in such a short span of time, and we really don't know about the long term, like 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line, what would happen. But still, the short term efficacy and safety things have all come through. Obviously, we have to keep our fingers crossed, because this situation is different. The entire world is going through a pandemic. So we cannot be really waiting for an appropriate vaccine for the next 10 years. By that time, the world would be wiped off. So I think the safety things that we have till now is reasonably good, but obviously nobody can promise that there are no long-term side effects. That only time would tell us.
When you say long-term side effects, suppose a year or 2 years later, what are the things that if something happens to me, I say, these are long-term side effects? I mean, what would be the common long-term side effects?
Most of the people are actually scared of neurological side effects. They are scared of demyelination or something happens. So people are scared of demyelination. People are...
In simple terms, explain what you mean demyelination.
Demyelination means the sheath of the nerve that gets basically denaged, and you can land up with a diminished vision. You can have a limited stroke. You may not be able to walk, depending on which area of the nerve has been involved. So that is something which we have been always scared of any of these vaccines. That's the major side effect that people suffer from. Otherwise, most of the side effects are acute, which happen within a couple of days.
So this long-term effect that you're saying, that is worrying, but it has not been studied beyond 6 months, obviously, or 8 months.
Right now, we don't have the studies, but the similar vaccines are made by similar platforms, like the Covaxin one, about which there's so much of a hullabulla. This is basically an inactivated vaccine. It's a dead virus, which still causes a bit of immunogenicity in a person in whom it has been injected. The side effects which would happen with such a inactivated or almost a killed vaccine is hardly anything, which years and years of research has shown. So I'm actually not expecting major side effects with at least the Indian manufactured vaccines.
No, there are 2 of them. Which one would you recommend? So once it goes, both are in the market, and fellow Rotarians now need to answer that. It's Covaxin and Covishield. Which one? By that time, hopefully, phase 3 trials of Covaxin would.
Once the phase 3 trials are there, I'm equally hopeful that Covaxin would come out with similar study. Similar results, but the results have to tell us that only can build up the confidence. But by the platform, by the method they have been used and all that, there's very convincing platform with which it has been manufactured, but only time can tell us, only studies can tell us that, okay, this is safe and this is efficacious.
So if it's
I
safe
won't-
and efficacious, which of the two would you recommend then?
See, as of right now, we have only studies with Covishield, as of right now. But in the next
Okay.
couple of weeks, when the studies with Covaxin comes through, then only we will be able to tell with that we have that with evidence-based. If we have to talk evidence-based, then we have to have the reports in public domain.
Okay. No, you told me that you had a few questions. So I've run out of questions now. So can you think of a few things extra you'd want to say before we open it to the members?
No, a few people are obviously talking about pregnant and lactating ladies, whether they should be vaccinated or not. Till now, it is said that the pregnant or lactating ladies should not be given the vaccine because we have no studies conducted on that. Still, people don't know whether they're contraindication or not, but since studies have not been conducted, these are the group of people who are expecting a pregnancy, people who are pregnant, and women who are lactating should not vaccinate themselves. Then the biggest question that everybody asked was about this blood thinners, which you also asked actually. And if you see the answer today is there in the newspapers today after so many, that ICMR has come out with an answer that people who are taking this aspirin or clopidogrel, they should not stop taking it. They should continue with it because at the most what will happen is a small blood clot that can happen. Only thing is if people are taking
at the injection site, you're talking about clot at the injection.
Small clot at the injection site. The people who are taking oral anticoagulants, something like warfarin or acetron, they might just stop it for a day or two again before they take that jab. Because again, the risk is only of that blood clot forming at the injection site. Otherwise, these patients are all supposed to take the vaccines at the earliest whenever the chance comes.
Okay. Is there anything else you think we haven't covered? Then, Rajiv, can you open it? Everybody can unmute themselves, so you can unmute. Yes, Mr. Sani. Anil Sani, you have a question?
Yes, good evening to everyone. I am a guest today, courtesy Rotarian President. I am President of RCD Panchila Park. I have a question to ask to the doctor. Although he has defined in his talk, but still, what is the validity of the vaccine? This is number one. And number two, what is there in the vaccine that is contributing to the fatalities? We as a common man are really concerned about the fatalities that we hear. So this is my two questions.
Chatterjee, will you take that? Yeah.
See, the fatalities that have happened have really not been shown that they have been attributed to the vaccine straight away. You can have it could be just an incidental factor that people have died because of the vaccine, because they took the vaccine a couple of hours back or something like that. But it has still not been proven to be directly, that vaccine has still not been told to be the direct causal reason for the mortality. So I don't think the mortalities are happening, because the mortality that would happen mostly post-vaccination is allergy or anaphylaxis. That can cause death of people where they develop a huge allergy to the vaccine. But cardiac arrest and all that are not known to be really side effects of this vaccine straight away. So that cannot be attributed to the vaccine till now, at least.
And what is the validity?
Validity means, what do you mean by validity?
Validity means if we take a vaccine, it will be valid for some period. What is that period?
Nobody still knows, because the vaccine, the entire manufacturing and everything has happened in the last one year only. So they're thinking that the studies, that it would be there for 3 to 6 months. It could be lasting for a year, but only time is going to tell us. But the fact is that because in human beings and all that, it has been seen to last for 3 to 6 months. It's been thought that the artificially produced immunogenicity would also last at least for a similar duration, but still we don't know as to whether it's a once a year shot or is a lifelong shot. Only time would tell us.
You know, sorry, no, that's a very good question. But how do we decide that 1 year is a good time for a booster? Is antibody level. So I get a vaccine today. Should I check my antibody level in 6 months and 1 year? And it's often unreliable after the illness. Antibody response can be nil even. So what would you say? How do I decide I need a booster?
See, how is the efficacy of a vaccine determined? It's determined by two things. One is the antibody production. The other one is that when we find out as to how, in what percentage of patients is it efficacious, there are two groups. One is the placebo group and the other one is the group which has received the vaccine. So as the time goes by, people in the placebo group, placebo is people who have not received the vaccine, if more number of people develop the disease or the infection, that means the placebo group or who haven't received the vaccine are more prone to infection. And this is how the percentage is calculated. People who have received the vaccine, not developing the disease in the next 6 months or 1 year, that is how the efficacy of the vaccine is found out. So, but in this case, no, as I said, nobody still knows because the time hasn't really passed by. So it could be that people will say that 6 months down the line, if people start having infections, that because the studies will simultaneously go on, it's only an emergency use clearance that the government has given. But otherwise, the studies would continue parallelly to tell us as to how efficacious the vaccine is, what is the validity, as you questioned, what is the validity of this vaccine. Only the coming months and years can tell us.
Will the same antibody test detect the variants? Antibody will the antibody test just check the antibodies to one variant, or can it tell us by next year that all the other variants that maybe will the same antibody test? If you had a UK variant COVID or the regular COVID or the African COVID, with the same antibody test be okay for that, or we don't know yet?
We don't know yet, but if the antibodies are produced, that means whatever the infection was, you produce the antibody against that infection.
Okay. Okay. And Chirag Jain has a question that you mentioned, lactating women and pregnant women. Is there any other group that is an absolute no-no that you should not be another group?
No, basically, all people can take it, but they might have to discuss with their own immunologists or the treating physicians as to what medications to stop for a while. So, but otherwise, the no-no group is people who are only having active COVID infection, lactating mothers, pregnant women, or who are expecting a pregnancy, and or people who have developed a severe allergic reaction to the COVID vaccine. These are the groups only which have been excluded.
What about 80-year-old, 85-year-old? What about elderly?
They have still not been excluded. They are still being said that they should be taking, at least in India, that's the recommendation till now.
So people in old people's home, elderly, the people with disabilities and their caregivers. Okay. So now somebody, Jyoti Dheer has asked a question.
I just want to ask a question, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, please. Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to know, I was told by some doctor, like the people who have had cancer or who have, suffered from cancer, the vaccine is not good for them to have. I don't know what is their basis, but a cancer doctor only mentioned the same thing.
See, people who have had cancers are again people with comorbidities and should receive the vaccine. The only thing is, if you are on a chemotherapy or something like that, at that time, the drugs might have to be stopped for a while or modified for a while, because otherwise the immunity production in you, suppose I inject you with a vaccine and the immunity production may not be that good as what would happen in people who are not on immunosuppressants or who are not on chemotherapeutic agents. But otherwise, cancer per se is not a contraindication for the vaccine.
It's earlier cancer, if you have, it is cured out. It is all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Even active people who are receiving chemotherapeutic agents under guidance of their oncologists can take the vaccine, but under their guidance, obviously.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question.
And yeah, Jyoti Dheer.
Can I ask?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Chatterjee. How are you? Anup here.
How are you doing?
Good evening, everyone. Okay, now two-part question. First one is like a bit similar to your case. I had COVID in April, but I had my antibodies checked the first week of January, and I still had about 83 of them. Should I wait another couple of months before I get the vaccine? That's the number one question. And the number two is, I've read in certain studies that the minimum waiting time between the first dose and second dose is 28 days. Now, I've read that if you wait a little longer, the efficacy of the vaccine actually increases. I just wanted you to clear my doubt about that. And the first part is, like you, should I have it now or should I wait for a couple of more months?
You should have it now. You should have it now. Whatever be the antibodies that you have, may not be sufficient enough. It may not be robust enough. but you should have the vaccine. Till now, this is what they say, that people who have had COVID also having their antibodies should get themselves vaccinated at the earliest whenever possible. This is what the theory tells us as of today.
Right.
The second thing, what you asked was
The length of the second dose. Yeah.
Interval between the first and second shot.
see, the studies that have been conducted till now, they say that what UK was trying to do, that they were trying to increase the duration between the two jabs. Okay. But then the pharmaceutical companies objected to it because they said that we don't have enough studies to prove the efficacy of this vaccine to this level if the duration is increasing. As I said, as time goes by, maybe even a single shot is better, or even 2 shots at a gap of 2 months is good. But till now, the studies which have been conducted mostly are at a gap of 3 to 4 weeks, and which have thought that after the first vaccine is called a primary immune response. And as the graph shows that after the first injection, the immunity starts to fall. When again the second injection, that causes a secondary immune response, and that response is found to be a good response. So 2 doses as of today is what is recommended, especially at a gap of 3 to 4 weeks. As time goes by, maybe it would be a 1-shot vaccine, or it would be 2 shots, but maybe at a gap of 2 months. Only time would tell us that.
Thank you.
Jyoti, do you want to ask your question yourself, or do you want me to read out the question?
Either ways works. You can read it out since I've
you
already
speak.
written.
No, you speak. Go on.
Okay. No, my question was, my husband has 3 stents in his main vessels and has had an open heart surgery last year in April, is on aspirin and other drugs. So is it really recommended for him? He's been doing fine with all the precautions, has not had COVID yet. So I'm a little skeptical. Should he really take it, not take it? What do you have to say, Dr. Chatterjee?
Recommendation wise, yes. Skepticism, everybody is having. People, even doctors are skeptic about taking the vaccine. The healthcare workers, there are so many nurses who were coming and asking me whether we should take the vaccine. Still too many people haven't taken the vaccine. So skepticism is there. But if you talk theoretically speaking, and by the comorbidity that you described, is definitely a candidate for vaccination.
So he's an anesthetist himself, and his number has also come in 2 different hospitals. His name is already there in the list. But the fact that he also has a lot of allergies, he's prone to allergies. So there is a lot of, so sometimes he has these respiratory issues also. So that's why I think both of us are just contemplating. He's been also talking to a lot of people as to when to take, he will take it, I'm sure, in the next couple of days. But I'm a little concerned, that's all.
Unfortunately, he won't get an answer because none of us know. That's the biggest problem with this disease. Because whatever we know is in the last 1 year only, the experience is minimal. But this is what studies have told. This is what past vaccinations have told us. So we are actually also basing a lot of our comments that we are giving is on the past experiences, by the way the vaccine has been produced, by the way these vaccines have produced side effects. So we are also basing a lot of our comments on the past experiences. But as of this disease, the experience is minimal.
Right. But if you delay or if you don't take it, sorry, Dr. Prasad.
No, carry on. No.
I'm saying if everything has been fine so far, so good, then what happens if you don't take it is my question. What if you don't take the vaccine?
No, you are always at a risk of developing if your antibodies are also negative, because sometimes people can have a subclinical infection and the antibodies might protect you for a while, although they have said that they may not protect you always. But till now, the theory says that you might be protected for a while, but he obviously is risking his life because he can get infected much more easily than other people. So he should get vaccinated, I think. I know there are queries, there's skepticism. None of the people have the answers to it, but we'll have to go by that faith factor.
Sure.
If things have been regulated, we know about these vaccines for the last so many years, especially in India. I'm hoping that all these things should be fine. This is what I could say.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much.
What you're saying is that individually, we don't know what will happen to one person, but based on the evidence of large number of cases, somebody with this background should be vaccinated.
100%.
And that is what the recommendation is.
Fair. Thank you.
And Radhika, you have a question? You want to do it yourself? Radhika Behel? Okay, I'm not sure if Radhika is there, but Dr. Chatterjee, her question is, one hears of cases where people have passed away a month or longer after recovering from COVID, many times heart related, and it is not limited to age 35 to 65. Can we know if it is a result of COVID or a pre-existing heart condition? Coincidence seems a bit far-fetched. So what she's asking is that a month or two later, after recovering from COVID, and somebody dies of a heart-related problem, do you think it's related? And before you answer, let me tell people that at Apollo now we are doing post-COVID testing 3 to 4 weeks later, where a cardiac checkup and a echo and all that is done. And Chatterjee, you can mention your own experience with your heart problem after your infection. Could you answer that?
Yeah. So obviously, when I recovered, I had a cardiac issue. Means I had palpitations. I was feeling dizzy. My heart rate would vary from 50 to 130. A few of the doctors told me, "Oh, you must be anxious." I said, "No, I'm not at all anxious. I know, means I have recovered from the illness, but this heart rate is varying." So actually, as I said, I make myself the guinea pig for everything. Like I'm doing the antibodies this time to test. I did a cardiac MRI, and it for sure showed cardiac inflammation. And Mr. Anup Soni is there, and I went to his cardiologist, Dr. K.K. Sethi, to have a discussion with him, and he said that you have a myocarditis, which with time would recover. As far as the illnesses that are happening, means after a month and a half of recovering from COVID, yes, there are long COVID cases or long COVID symptoms which are being attributed. It may not always be due to COVID, but yes, we are seeing cases of acute stroke or of myocardial infarction, that is heart attack, after recovering from COVID. We have seen even during the illness that a lot of clots form in the body, and the entire pathology of death and everything in COVID changed from it being just a respiratory infection to the fact that the lungs get destroyed because of the blood clots. So obviously there is a lot of tendency for blood clots to form in the body during COVID, and post-COVID also we have seen that the blood can be thicker than usual. So there is a definite relation between the two things happening, that a person dying of a heart attack or of a clot in the lungs, what is called as pulmonary embolism, or of a stroke. This we are seeing not very commonly, but this we are seeing after COVID. I think there's a relation with COVID also, but in a few cases, it might be just incidental as well. But we have to be careful for the next 2 to 3 months. As Dr. Prasad said, that even after we have recovered from COVID, we in our hospital and other hospitals must be also having it. We are having a post-COVID care clinic sort of a thing where we are doing different tests. What we have learned from the last couple of months, that we are doing post-COVID tests, which includes an echo and all these things, and an evaluation by a physician or a pulmonologist as to guide you for further for the next couple of months.
Because as I've found out, most of these reported deaths have people who've done vigorous activity. I've been lying down with fever. Let me go and do some exercise. They start cycling, they start running, jogging, and then something has happened, and we picked it up. And I'm very grateful that you, suggested to my 73-year-old family members that you please do get your checkups done. Make sure before they do vigorous exercise post-COVID that they have had their heart checked and their lung checked. So I'm grateful. And I think it's this group of people who are not checked post-COVID that this may happen. So anyway, are there any more questions, or are there any more questions?
Hi. Doc, may I ask a couple of questions? Dr.
Of course,
Chatterjee, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to see you at our Rotary meeting, of course, virtual meeting.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Do you know each other, Vivek?
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of having Dr. Chatterjee examine me on more than one occasion. He, of course, apart from that, is the most friendly person you can come across.
Yeah, more than me.
We end up chatting about all sorts of things. But so yes, I do know Dr. Chatterjee, and I've had the pleasure of knowing him for many years now. But I've got 3 questions. One is a practical one, which is, what is the mechanism of getting the vaccine? A lot of us have resident welfare associations, which they sent a thing around saying anyone over 50, register with us on a Google thing, and we'll see what happens. And we haven't heard from them after that. So is that the only way to do it, or is there another way to do it? And is it going to be offered privately at hospitals like Apollo? And I would of course prefer a private thing as opposed to the distrust one generally has of a government facility. But A, your views on that. B, second question. You were talking about fatalities. And you said it could be incidental, it could be allergies, etc. But I, by the way, happen to spend my time at my working desk at home most of the day these days. I'm working from home. Preeti, as all women, doesn't do any work at all day long. All she does is watch TV. And so she tells me that the deaths that have been reported have only been in India, I don't know, 8 deaths or she was having to say me, from Covishield. So is that coincidental or is there something about Covishield? That's the second question.
Let me qualify. This is an article I read yesterday, so I don't know whether it's factual or non-factual.
Plus, these women make up all their stories all the time. That's the second question. Third
So
question.
what was your question again?
My question. I had 3 questions. First was about the mechanism of getting the vaccine. The second was about whether there's something about Covishield which is to be thought about. I was initially saying, hey, Oxford vaccine, they had Oxford had the sort of lead over everyone else because they've been working on this kind of adenovirus or whatever it was for a few years. And so that must be really a good one to think about. But I'm just wondering whether there's anything about the Covishield which has got anything to do with it. My third question actually is what, Dr. Chatterjee, you being the kind of gregarious person that you are, and of course a doctor, and your friend Dr. Rajendra Prasad being a member of our club, has stopped you from joining our club? So far.
There's so many questions. And by the way, you must be the flag bearer for Oxford vaccine, being an alumni yourself.
Well, I didn't want to say that, but yes, obviously.
No, I have supported Oxford vaccine. I've given comments on magazines and onto the press a couple of months back, because when they came out with the studies and all that, they were pretty transparent, and they even stopped doing the studies when they saw a reaction happening and all that. So it was a pretty transparent study. So I've got my faith on Oxford, as do I have on my Covaxin also. I thought that it was just launched a bit early. If it would have been launched 3 weeks down the line or 2 weeks down the line, people would have had much more confidence in Covaxin as well, because everybody wants to know what is happening. Everybody wants to have an evidence base before they really have the faith on that vaccine, and that to a newer vaccine. But I think that Covaxin should also be good. Covishield, I think Covishield is a good vaccine. Obviously, the efficacy rate is not as high as the mRNA vaccines of US, but they are all new platforms. We should also realize that this is a very old platform, time-tested method, complications to be less. Efficacy much lesser than the mRNA vaccines, but I don't think that they can really cause those complications. So let's think that in all probability, they are all incidental findings, that 8 people have died because of Covishield. The other question that you asked, that how to get the vaccine. Now, this is a big question mark. Obviously, till now, I think the app would open up. As the app is introduced into the public domain, people can register themselves. We have had an offer from our management telling that give us the names of people whom you want to get vaccinated and all that, but nothing has gone beyond that. Nothing has really happened. So I think the government is still keeping it close to itself. As soon as these healthcare workers and frontline people are vaccinated, they would come out with this app and they will tell us more about how to get registered at different places.
And will it be offered privately, as in by private hospitals? That's
again a government decision, because quite a few people have started questioning that why are vaccines being exported, whereas it could have come into private sale and all that thing. But obviously, it's a government decision, and I think in the next couple of months it should come through in the private thing. That's what I'm thinking, that because most of these, even the Pfizer and all that, they have got things ready even in this country. They've got things ready even in this country. I would think that private players would come in the next couple of months, obviously after the government decides to do so.
And third question you haven't answered, Doc.
Which one? About joining our club?
I mean, he's got to account for himself. Why the heck has he not joined our club so far?
He's really busy.
To me, he's made for Rotary. By the way, another thing I must mention about Dr. Chatterjee, he is extremely charitable minded. So he's the perfect candidate for Rotary. I have, in the not too distant past, referred my friends to him. In fact, one of them had COVID. He happily treated them on the phone. I believe he hasn't charged them a cent. which is bad business. I mean, I will not recommend that he joins my company because I'm not sure I want people who are not going to do any business at all.
Yeah.
But and I won't say this to Apollo because I don't know why he's not collecting any money. But he's a perfect candidate for Rotary.
I will answer that because he has no time to spend the money. He is in the ward round. If you ring him at midnight, he has halfway through his ward rounds. And I can also say from my side, the reason I can do brain surgery or top spine surgery is because people like him are there to look after. And the care that you get at Apollo is simply because surgery may be good, I may be good, but if it wasn't for the care that the physicians provide, we wouldn't be able. And you mentioned about apprehension about government hospitals, how times have changed. When Chatterjee and I joined Apollo, they would say, "Acha, private mein neurosurgery kar raha hai." You know, that apprehension about neurosurgery, cardiac surgery, private. And look what, Chatterjee, look where we've taken private medicine in 20 years. The people are saying, this is the go-to place. This is not the place we have apprehensions about. It's the other place. So thank you so much, Vivek. You made my day by that comment. And so now, if there are no other questions, I'll ask our Madam President, who's been, he hasn't got the sleep.